This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you, and the health care bill has dropped, and like a brick on the heads of disabled people. 2/3 of elderly people in the United States, 2/3 of people who are getting nursing home care or retired living care in the United States, medical care, are getting it through Medicaid. Half of all babies born in the United States, the cost of the birth is paid for by Medicaid. 39% of all American children are covered right now by Medicaid. Medicaid is a program that Lyndon Johnson's administration put together and rolled out in the 60s. And the Republicans have been absolutely committed to destroying ever since, because they called it socialized medicine. Well, it's not socialized medicine, it's socialized insurance. But it's, and Americans love it. And, the Republic, and you want the real proof that the Republican Party knows how toxic this thing is. Because these guys, the giant right-wing echo chamber, the vast right-wing conspiracy that Hillary Clinton used to talk about, it's out there and it's real. And, for example, I just looked at Drudge Report. You'd figure, with the health care bill dropping and everything, that the top story on the Drudge Report, let's see if they're still doing this, that the top story on the Drudge Report would be, Senate drops bill to, to give a $600 billion tax cut to billionaires and multimillionaires, and use that, and to get that money, they take it away from working class people, elderly people, children, etc. You would think that would be the headline, but no. The top headline on Drudge right now is that George Clooney cashes out. He's got a $233 million tequila sale. And the next story, FBI, no wider plot suspected in Michigan airport stabbing. Then the next story, LA paving the way for Obama Boulevard. Then the next story, proposal calls for dissolving Illinois. It's not even here. It's probably somewhere on the page. But this is amazing what's going on. Our number is 202-808-9925. I'm particularly interested in hearing your calls about what a rollback of Medicaid, which is essentially what this bill is. It does away with Obamacare over time. It does away, or parts of Obamacare, and it rolls back Medicaid, excuse me, and Medicaid is like, it's a really extraordinary program, and it has served us really, really well. If you go back to this book, Democracy in Chains, I've been reading this for a couple of weeks, week and a half now. I'm about halfway through it. And it is just amazing that this whole modern conservative movement began with the Brown versus Board decision. That was the thing that really activated the hardcore right-wing white men, wealthy white men, is Brown versus Board of Education. Oh my God, you mean our children have to go to school with people of color? Oh my God. That beginning point in this book, Democracy in Chains, lays it out how right-wing and ultimately right-wing billionaires, in fact, some of the early efforts were funded by the Kochs and by others. That effort has culminated today in the capture of the Republican Party by billionaire interests, petro-billionaire at that. Billionaires who derive their income from fossil fuels, or a large chunk of their income from fossil fuels. And this is the result. Right now, they're arresting disabled people in I believe it's the Hart office building. I'm pretty sure that's where Mitch McConnell's office is, in one of the Senate office buildings. They're arresting disabled people. They're taking them out in their wheelchairs. They were dragging them out because people are saying, no. Oh, he's in the Russell building. Thank you. No, we don't want this. And this is a combination of a couple of things here, and it's really important to understand how this got here. Number one, this is the Obama anti-legacy project at work. And you see that from all the right-wing commentators and all the right-wing, it's like, our first black president may not have a legacy. This is the Republican mantra. Barack Obama will have no legacy. We are going to wipe his name out of the history books. Everything that he did of consequence, we're going to reverse. Number one. And number two, when that nasty first African-American president and his Democratic buddies passed Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, when they passed Obamacare, they funded it with a 3.9% capital gains tax increase so that the very, very rich saw their top tax rate go from 20%. Now, wait a minute. You say, hey, I thought the top tax rate was 39.5%. That's not for the very, very rich. That's for the merely well-off. So, a university president who's making 500 grand a year, or a surgeon who's making 700 grand a year, they're paying 39% in income tax. And you could argue that they're overpaid, but that's a whole other thing. But what about the billionaires? Well, they reconfigure their businesses so that they take their money as capital gains, as dividends. And if your income is dividends rather than a paycheck, your top tax rate is 20%, which seems obscene, right? I mean, isn't it bizarre that, as Reagan back in the day said, is it right that a millionaire pays lower taxes than a bus driver? And the students, the high school students he was talking to said, no, it's not right. And he was actually making that point. It's, for 1 year, capital gains and the normal income tax bracket were the same. They were both 25% for 1 year. I think it was 87 that during the Reagan presidency. Might have been 86, so it was somewhere in there. And that was Reagan's goal. He thought that was a good thing. He thought they should be the same. But then, of course, the Republican, he slid into dementia in the last 2 years of his presidency, and the Republicans took over and, he dropped the top capital gains rate. Well, that top capital gains rate moved from 20% to 23.9%. So that the billionaires in this country, and we have a lot of them, and no, they don't earn all their money. Their income, by and large, comes as a result of our copyright and trademark laws, our governmental protections, our infrastructure, our society, our banking system, our court system that allows them to do business and enforce their contracts, all of that stuff. This myth of, oh, Bill Gates, he deserves every penny. Come on. The guy bought an operating system from somebody for 50 grand and turned it into a business. Yeah, he's a smart businessman, but does that mean he's God? Does that mean that he should be the richest guy in the world? And I don't mean to just pick on Bill Gates, just the whole concept that this whole kind of neo-Darwinian concept that Donald Trump promoted last night in his speech in Iowa, where he said, I only want rich people running the economy. And everybody in the crowd is like, yeah, rich people run the economy. Really? You know what rich people do when they run the economy? They make it better for rich people. And there is a zero-sum element to the economy, which means that as the rich get richer, guess what happens? The poor and the working class get poorer. And we have seen this. We have been watching it happen with our own eyes ever since the 1980s when Reagan put these policies into place. Ronald Reagan, who recorded back in the 60s, who recorded an ad or a record for the American Medical Association talking about how Medicare was socialism and would destroy America. And we got Medicare, and then we got Medicaid. And now the Republicans are starting to take this apart. They want to gut it. They want to destroy it. And it is not, do not, save me the crocodile tears about, oh, this is socialism, or this is not what the founders wanted, or that kind of nonsense. The Constitution is actually quite clear. It's actually quite clear that the general welfare of the people of the United States, and I don't know how you could say Medicare and Medicaid are not part of providing for the general welfare, is the reason why this country was created. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States. And then you get to Article 1, Section 8, which is the powers granted to Congress. The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imports, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. That's the enumerated powers portion of the Constitution that right-wingers love to quote and say, hey, wait a minute, where's that in the enumerated? Where's the Congress doesn't have the power to do Obamacare? Well, yeah, it does. And then, the last one, item 18 of Article 1, Section 8, Congress shall have the power to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers. And one of those powers is to provide for the common defense and the general welfare of the United States. I mean, this is not rocket science. The Supreme Court has ruled that it's not unconstitutional to provide for people's health insurance or health care, whether it's through Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, whatever it may be. Obamacare. It's perfectly constitutional. But what's going on here are two things. Number one, a $600 to $800 billion tax cut for the billionaires in America and the billionaire class in America that owns the Republican Party. Number one. And number two, stripping Barack Obama of any legacy so that 30 years from now, there'll be not a single accomplishment in the history of this. The exact opposite of the Reagan Legacy Project.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We'll be back with your calls after.